afternoon and welcome to Coffee on the Coast. Good afternoon, friends. Welcome to Coffee on the Coast. I'm your host this afternoon, Tina Therese, and I am joined by Therese Horstgetter of the award-winning Manitowoc Public Library. I'm so happy because seeing you, Therese, means that it is Book Banter Day.
Yes, it is. Hello.
Welcome back. And Therese, I was looking at images yesterday and I found this image that I thought really resonated for both of us. It's this coffee mug that says, "I eat books for breakfast."
That is nice.
I feel like someday it should be in each of our collections, even though I don't own it yet. Someday I want to own that mug. All right. So, oh, sorry, I cut you off. What did you say,
I
Therese?
think so too.
Nice. Hey, speaking of books, it is summer 2021, so we're in the midst of the summer reading program. Look at this bling, you guys. I just earned this summer reading program pin at the library. Therese, do you want to tell just people a little reminder of what they should do if they're participating in that program?
Summer reading program. You are, of course, reading like you always do, or maybe even more so to take part in the reading program. It's for all ages. And at this point, we are coming to the end of it. You've been logging the days that you've read. You've probably won some prizes already. And then towards the end of it, you will be able to take the raffle tickets that you have collected at this point, either online or the way we take care of it on paper for you. And you will be depositing those into whatever prizes you are hoping to win for those raffles. So I hope you've had a nice time reading and enjoying the program.
Rewards for reading. What could be better?
Yeah.
So we've got a couple of book recommendations that you're going to share with us today. I'm going to pull up this graphic so people can clearly see the book covers and the titles. We're going to start with this one on the right called No Hiding in Boise. It's a novel by Kim Hooper. And from what I gathered, it's about three women that are tied together by kind of a tragic fate. Can you tell us more, Therese?
No Hiding in Boise is about three women who are all involved or connected to a mass shooting that takes place in a bar in Boise. It is definitely a drama. It is the three women, I should say. One is a bartender named Tessa who hides when the shooter comes in. Someone warns her to run. The next one is Angie. She is the wife of a man who is shot during this event, and she is at home and doesn't know why he's at the bar. And the third one is when she's notified by the police, that's when she first realizes he isn't at home. And then the third woman involved is the shooter's mother. So there is tragedy all around, of course. The shooter's name is Jed. His mother is notified, pretty much in the same way, but when you are the mother of someone who's done this, the tragedy is, of course, in a whole different direction. And the women, in some way, all end up making connections to each other. And there are more people shot than just the one. There are several people. Some die, some do not. The chapters are told by different people in the story. So each of the people that I mentioned, as well as some of the deceased, have their own chapters leading up to how they were in the bar that night.
Oh, interesting.
Very interesting. I found it a very easy read. And for having, several good characters, that it didn't get overly complicated. And I thought it was a very good story.
Interesting. So it's set around a tragedy. So there's already this tragedy to explore, but then it's how it has affected these three women and like what they have to discover about how it relates to them. So like being the mother of the shooter is so complicated. The woman you just described who doesn't even realize her husband isn't at home until she finds out, oh, he was at this bar
Right,
and got shot. And then the woman who is at the bar but survives must have all sorts of questions like, why was she so lucky compared to the others?
right, right. And so you can imagine some of the connections they would try to make, some that are almost accidental because there's revolving around this area between hospital and the bar and police. And it was a very good story. And the author has written 5 previous books that all, I've not read any of the others, but I believe that she writes basically about relationship and family drama quite a bit, just from the blurbs I've seen of her other books. And she has a nonfiction one coming out this year that is called All the Love, Healing Your Heart and Finding Meaning After Pregnancy Loss. So going in a different direction, and I would think probably personal for her, but she has that coming out this year as well.
So it sounds like she kind of understands what she's writing about. And I guess that makes sense because if you look at the cover, it says Kim Hooper has created magic.
Right. Yeah. It was very good. I was really happy I picked that one up.
Nice. Does it end up being uplifting in some way, or is it heavy? Does it leave you in a heavy place?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
Oh, yep. When you get to the end of the book, is it uplifting or does it leave you in a heavy place?
Um, it's I'm not sure you can say completely uplifting, but there were some things that come out of all of this that are some somewhat better changes maybe for people,
Interesting.
and just the different connections made that
Nice.
surprising.
So overall, you recommend the book. It was an
Yeah,
easy and enjoyable read.
definitely.
Awesome. Let's talk about the other book that's on the same image. Now we're talking about the one on the left, and this is The Final Girl Support Group, also a novel. This is by Grady Hendrix. And what I thought was interesting about this choice, Therese, is this is the same author that wrote the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires,
Right.
that we had talked about on a previous episode.
Yes,
And
you
this
did.
one is billed as like a wickedly humorous thriller. So tell us more.
Well, this one, um, this was different. I didn't know quite what to expect of it, but the Final Girl support group has to do with women who were basically the last person that a serial killer dealt with. And they basically say there were, where you see the camp movies and all the girls get killed and one is left and either kills the serial killer or sometimes they just disappear. I know I've seen that in a movie where at the end he gets pushed out a window. So you figure he's laying there and not alive any longer. And someone looks out the window and he's gone. So there's a bit of that. And they have a support group. They don't meet often, but they always say they'll get together at least once a year. And at the the one that starts out for this book, um, one girl doesn't show up, and she won't ever show up. So um, they know that somebody is out there doing something because then something else happens to another person, and so they know that somebody is kind of picking up these crimes and trying to get rid of the final girl from each one. And so there is a lot of suspicion as to who might be doing this. And they even look at each other at some point. This is just all kind of from the blurb of the book without giving much away. So there's a lot, of being in this group that, they've learned some things about each other. You have a counselor who is helping them, and they generally seem to have very, very few but very close friends that they each have someone they could trust. So kind of revolves around all of that. And these killings all happened about 20 years ago. So this is a long time ago. And Lynette, who is the main character of the final girls in the book, um, just lives her life prepared to be attacked.
Oh, terrible. Oh,
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah. So it is strenuous when you are going through this. If you really put yourself, in her person, to feel how that must be, like never sitting with your back to a door. That's, I think, not an uncommon thing for people anyway, but just the other things that she goes through, just in her apartment, everywhere she goes, always looking for exits. So that's a big part of the story, and as you travel along with her for a good part of it.
Is it a little bit of a comedy? Is there humor throughout it, or is it
This
mostly
this one I did not take as much of that from in the Southern Book Club's guide to slaying vampires. There was more of that in there, but this has a little bit, I guess, maybe thinking about each other once in a while or remarks that they'll make. But I would not say there is too much comedy involved in this one. It's more the strain on these people and how they live.
it's such an interesting premise because all of the camp movies that we would have seen, like Friday the 13th and
Right.
Nightmare on Elm Street, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you're right, there always seems to be, out of a group that starts the movie, there's always one like final girl that
Yep.
survives. So this book is about the support group for those final girls from all these different
Yep.
kind of scenarios,
Mm-hmm. It,
but
it,
then they start getting
like I
picked off
said,
is
it
what.
didn't have that break with, that the comedy kind of takes a little off the edge. There was not as much of this in there, but
Interesting.
still a good book.
Is it an enjoyable read, an easy read?
I thought it was. It gets a little hard almost when you are, like I said, putting yourself with this person. It gets to be a little tough sometimes thinking of that, but I thought it was still a worthwhile read.
In the end, does it leave you afraid?
Does what?
Does it leave you afraid in the end? When you put the book down, is it like a Stephen King horror novel where you're just like, oh, for a while after?
No, I have to say it settles enough that you don't, it's not meant to do that to you. More
Oh,
of
good.
just the understanding throughout, I think.
Interesting. Okay, I'm just going to put those two back up real quick. So we just talked about No Hiding in Boise by Kim Hooper and The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. Now we're going to talk about, we'll start with the book on the right. It's called Two Truths and a Lie. And this is
Okay.
by Meg Mitchell Moore. And I understand that this is kind of in the vein of author Liane Moriarty, who we've talked about a couple of her books.
And I did not look up, oh, wait, I shouldn't say that. This is her sixth novel. I don't recall reading others by her, but it just caught my eye, I think. And says she's a journalist that turned to fiction. She actually lives in the city with the same name as she uses in the book that she places the book in. So it is basically about. I'm in the middle of reading this one, so I can't tell you what the end is going to be like. But uh, the blurb mentions the two truths and a lie. Truth number one is that Sherry and her daughter recently moved to the idyllic town of Newburyport, Massachusetts, and she's running from a bad divorce and tries to fit in with a local group of women and their children there called the Mom Squad. Truth number two is that Alexa, one of the Mom Squad moms, has had a recent falling out with best friends, but no one knows why. And then for the lie, Rebecca, one of the other moms, does not have a new man in her life, and we'll find out why or what happened to the previous man in her life. Alexa is not seeing anyone new. So these are actually several lies, but Sherry, the first person I mentioned, is only running from a bad divorce. and that is a lie. So we know there's more to her story than just leaving a previous husband. So it looks like it's going to be pretty interesting. You, of course, with this number of women and pretty much, I would say, young teen girls, that you're going to have a lot of personalities. And I'm waiting to see. I have not seen yet exactly for any of these what the lies are going to bring about. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Is it a page turner? Is it pulling you through the book?
It's an easy read at this point, and some things are just starting to kind of say, "Oh, this is going to be something," as you get reading more. So,
Fun.
yeah, I'm
So
enjoying.
you're enjoying it. Okay, and you're
Yeah.
gonna keep going. Hey, just gonna let us know that Kay Blatt says hello. Hello, Kay. Thanks for joining us. All right, so then let's talk about Faithless in Death. And this
Oh,
is by J.D. Robb.
okay.
And
I
I'm
actually,
getting the feel that it's a crime thriller. And is this part of a series, would you say, Therese?
it is. It is part of a series. It's like book number 54 now.
54.
Yes, or 52, sorry. So J.D. Robb, the author, is Nora Roberts, writing under another name. She does this series of books, they all have in depth in the title. The very first one was called Naked in Death, and then they've just kept up with the In Death series. It's to me, it's a wonderful series. I've loved it for years, and it didn't take 52 years. She didn't. She puts out definitely more than one book a year to keep up with this, and also writing as Nora Roberts. And I didn't realize she had two other pen names that she uses besides. And I haven't looked those up, but Jill March and Sarah Hardesty are also pen names for Nora Roberts. These I have seen listed as all different things. I've seen them listed as romance, as thriller, mystery, um, not really sci-fi. They are set in roughly the year 2050. There are flying cars. There are other things that are actually something that would be kind of fun to look forward to. The microwave that makes a whole meal in minutes, that kind of thing. And there are some things that I think we already have around. There's probably the drying tubes, as they call them. After your shower, you say a temperature and it blows you dry. You just stand there and, yeah, and things like that. And there's, of course, travel to other planets easily, but it's basically about a New York Police Department lieutenant, Eve, and her husband, who is named Rourke. And he is one of the richest men in the world. They met at a crime scene, and in the first book, of course, and they they both had very rough childhoods. They had a bonding with that, and they do end up married within the first couple of books. I would have to go back to look, but they have a few close friends, and the department that she works in, these characters have kind of traveled throughout the series. So it's really nice that way. If you like to see characters develop and keep going. So it really is basically there will be a murder, usually happens within the first couple of pages. And sometimes there are more, and it just follows her and her department and how her husband can help interact with the police also. And I would not label them sci-fi, even though they happen that far in the future and have different things involved.
Oh, interesting. So, could somebody pick up this book and read it as a standalone, or should they really start with book one and work their way through?
I don't think you would have to go back to one. I think you could read it as a standalone. There are some things when she wrote earlier books, it seems she would kind of refresh you each time on, I had this kind of a childhood, and there's my wonderful husband, he had this. She would kind of bring that up, and she is very tough. She is very tough. She is, um, it is very funny. Some of the phrases she uses wrong. She's, it's not a second language to her or anything, but she just uses things wrong. And she's afraid of animals and things. They go to another country and she's terrified of cows and is so being this really tough cop, and then she just has these funny things about her. But um yeah, you could pick it up and read it. There might be a couple things you might not quite get as much as someone who's read the series. But
So,
it is a good murder story though.
Therese, have you read the series?
I have. Yeah.
Wow.
Someone suggested it to me a long time ago, and I didn't look at when the first book was published, but it has been. I know several people who faithfully read the series, so yeah.
I'm blown away that
How long
as
she'll
an author, she's that prolific. I mean, that's amazing to have that many books,
it is
especially since JD Robb's not the only pen name that she's using.
right.
How could she write that much? That's amazing.
Yes, it is. And I said, I think anybody who reads a long series or a lot of books, even if they're not a series specifically, but once in a while, you don't have a favorite. I'd say of all of these, maybe three were not, oh, that was so good. Once in a while you have that. But no, I would say the majority of them are really good reads.
Oh, great. Well, that's a great tip for anybody that is looking for something a little more long term that wants to get into a series. All
And
right,
they're
I'm just going to put that up.
not going to be hard to find.
So that we were just talking about Faithless in Death by J.D. Robb, a pen name of Nora Roberts. Very cool. All right, Therese, you've got two more recommendations for us. Let's start with the one on the right. This is Girls with Bright Futures by Tracy Dobmeyer and Wendy Katzman.
Yes. This was a good read. It was, the book revolves around a small group of women and their children, their daughters who attend an elite high school. They are all trying to get into the same college, or a good number of them are. And you have the variety of outlooks by the girls, where one really wants to get in and she's worked her future around that school. Another who really doesn't care, her mom's pushing her. And another who is, well, my parents went there, I suppose I should, that kind of thing. So you have the legacy thing involved with at least a couple of them. And um, there is one woman who is a multimillionaire tech giant and her daughter, but one of the other moms works for this woman. So she has to watch her step with her daughter also wants that college and what's going to happen to that relationship. And so it stays around the three main girls. And what happens is that an auto accident involves one of the girls. And we don't know that it was really an accident. We don't know who was driving the vehicle that hurt this girl. And there are other lengths that people are taking through social networking that to try and kill the chances of the other girls getting in. So there's a little bit of physical, a little bit of, and then what happens to, of course, the girls just at school trying to work their way through this. So it was a good read. Yeah, what kind of lengths they'll go to get this. And the authors, it's their first book. They both live in Seattle. It says with husbands and children and pets. So I hope they write again. It was a good one.
Nice. So it really sounds like there's like some tiger mom dynamics happening. And I can't imagine any school being quite worth what you're describing that they've gone through. But it
Right.
sounds like an interesting read. So we were just talking about Girls with Bright Futures, a thriller for the post-college admissions scandal age.
Mm.
Interesting.
And it's amazing because even I'm not sure if he was called a principal or not, at their high school had to actually a couple of times just send things out saying, knock it off with everything that was going on. You can't be doing this. And yeah, so.
And so the college only had like one spot or something, or limited admissions?
Right, limited admissions from certain schools at that point.
Gotcha. I wonder if either of the two authors experienced something like this themselves or with their own kids.
Yeah, they're both, they look a little younger. I don't know that they would have kids that age, just from the photo that I remember seeing of the two of them. Yeah.
Interesting.
But
very cool.
They kept it moving, and yeah, it was a good read.
Okay, we've got one more recommendation, and this is called First Friends by Gary Ginsberg. And what I thought was interesting when I looked this book up, Therese, is that it says it's riveting histories of presidential friendships. So it's like presidents and the friends on whom they relied, which is
Right.
a really unique angle. I'm not aware of other books that really explore that angle.
Yeah, I thought this sounded interesting. I've not read it. It's excuse me. It's available right now. That Tatley's put a hold on if it's not on the shelf, but it mentioned presidential pals, and I thought, these people, I think, stay out of the limelight a lot. These are people that they had on the side, and it said, when it described FDR, and it said his distant cousin Daisy, who he trusted with highly classified diplomatic and strategic information that he didn't even share with his own cabinet.
Oh,
And
wow.
and it says about Abe Lincoln, his friend Joshua, who sometimes just shared a bed with Lincoln, and they were close enough and just pals that they could lean on, it sounds like. And I'm sure in that, I can't imagine being in that position and who you feel you can go to just for support at some points, besides a spouse, or that you
Yeah.
don't want it in the political arena that you're in.
To have that truly trusted confidant, to know that you have somebody you can bounce your ideas off of, that's got your back. What an interesting concept. So this is nonfiction, right?
Right. And the gentleman, the author that wrote it, what it says was a lawyer, or is a lawyer, political operative, and corporate advisor. Lives with his wife and two kids. And I do not know what direction he goes in as far as politics, but the book itself just sounded very interesting.
Yeah, even the cut line on the bottom that says the powerful, unsung, and unelected people who
Right,
shaped our presidents.
right. Yeah, I like that phrase too.
And it's an interesting concept to think that their relationship and their involvement can shape the direction that a president might go.
Right. Yeah,
That
I
sounds like a fascinating
make
read.
sense to read it because it really sounded interesting.
And you said this one is available at the library?
It is available. It's in our system. I don't know if a copy is on the shelf at the moment, but it's in our catalog.
Awesome. Wow, Therese, thank you so much for all of the good ideas. It is a beautiful summer. We've been having these incredible summer days, so
Yep.
hopefully people are getting a chance to pull out their books and find a few minutes at least to read in the sunshine. And I really appreciate the recommendations, and I always have fun talking books with you, Therese.
Thanks. Always fun to share.
Thanks. Keep up the great work at the Manitowoc Public Library, and we will look forward to seeing you next time on Coffee on the Coast. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Take care.